there's quite a bit of following on both sides. Folks that are supporting Karmelo Anthony and folks that are supporting the victim side, Austin Metcalf. And then there's a bunch of people like me that are just in between it all and just following the case because media's blown it up. Yeah, so both sides appear at a bond hearing. You're going to have representative for the state, which was the first assistant for Collin County. His name's Bill Werski. He was there representing the state. And the defense attorney for Karmelo Anthony, I want to say it's Mike Howard, but I think it's Mike Howard who, and I'm not sure if he was retained or appointed. I've seen the word appointed used. And so I don't know if he was actually, that could be a mistake that the press made. They could have paid for him, or maybe they didn't pay for an attorney and he was actually truly appointed. I don't know the answer to that because I've seen the word appointed used in news articles, and I didn't see it on the docket sheet available on the district clerk's site. But he had an attorney and he went in and he did his job. One of the things that an attorney is going to do during a bond reduction hearing, they don't have to follow any sort of rules of evidence. So in this type of hearing, unlike in a trial, we get to bring in whatever we want as proof or evidence. It can be hearsay, so you can bring something in from a police report. Preferably, though, if you're the accused, you want to bring in live witnesses. You want to bring in witnesses that are going to tell the judge, hey, this kid has been responsible. He's been a leader. This is out of character. I think that if you give him a lower bond and a chance, he's going to follow your rules, judge. And I know these parents, they're good parents. They're going to hold him accountable, make sure he follows your rules, things like that. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what you want as the defense attorney. You want to make sure that the judge knows that their risk in lowering that bond, not only would it be more reasonable for there to be a lower bond, but they don't have as much risk as they may think, because there are community ties, there are family ties, there are protocols like electronic monitors and things like that that can be put in place. And that's what the defense attorney did. They were able to utilize some, I read his parents. I'm sure they called more than that. I only have access to what the media is producing, but I read parents and I read they were cross-examined by the attorney, that the district attorney representing the state, that he did question the financial means. He did bring up that they had raised through the Give, Send, Go over $400,000. He did mention that it didn't go into detail in the press report, but he did mention that there was a February 4th incident at school and asked some questions about that incident at school. And at the end of the day, he took the stance that this shouldn't be lowered. That's his lane, right? That's him doing his job. Hey, the court set this originally at this amount. We believe it's reasonable. It shouldn't be lowered. Of course, the defense side, hey, that is unreasonable. This is a kid who has never been involved with the criminal justice system. You've heard his family members say that they're going to, supervise him. He's never had any sort of issues. He was a leader. He was working jobs, everything good you can possibly think of. Defense did their job. Judge rules. So judge calls the balls and strikes. Judge rules. She lowers it from $1 million to $250,000. So a very, in my mind, much more reasonable bond. I know other people disagree. A lot of people have strong opinions about this. They think that there should be no bond. They think that the $1 million was reasonable. But for me, as a practicing attorney, and seeing how bonds have been set over the course of the past decade, in my experience, I think that the $250,000 bond was reasonable, given he is a 17-year-old with no criminal history. And in my mind, based on what I've read, showed remorse and some emotion. I get more worried when people accused of crime show literally no emotion, some sort of psychopathic or sociopathic tendencies, things like that. And so there was clearly a lot going on with this young man the day of the incident based on the accusations in the police report. And I think all those things come into factor when setting a bond. And so the judge lowered it, and very quickly he was able to post it. And so Karmelo Anthony posted his bond. The conditions that are in place moving forward with the bond are an electronic monitor, house arrest. That's probably for his safety just as much as anyone else's at this point in time, based on the publicity. There's a lot of hateful people on both sides. So I think that is a great condition to put in place for the pendency of the case. And then, of course, there's going to be other things like just checking in with the court. I believe I read no social media, which makes sense. No contact with the victim or the victim's family. These are all common or normal conditions that you'd see for a bond. Trying to think if there's anything else. That I think those were the big ones, right? Those are the big bond conditions. More or less, stay at home, don't get in trouble, going to report to the court, no contact with the victim's family, and you're going to be monitored.
Yep, staying offline, no social media. I'm saying that because I saw a comment that went by. Yeah, and then checking in with the bailiff every Friday. You may have said that. I didn't.
Yeah.
I froze or you froze. And then I think also this last part points out the fact that they're worried about his safety with the updating the address if they have to relocate for safety purposes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there are going to be some common sense things, obviously, that are built into it. Like they won't even put it on a docket sheet. But I saw somebody put it like no drugs or alcohol. I mean, he's 17 years old. Of course, that would be following the law for him, just a general condition. So they're, when they get their bond, there's things already built into the bond paperwork. Some of y'all who are familiar with criminal justice or law enforcement understand that. But then those very particular ones, the specific ones, are the ones that are spelled out in the docket entry and will be put into the bond paperwork, tailored to his case and to him. And True Crime Mama, it shows on my end that you're having connection issues. So
Yeah, and it shows on my end that it's you, but it's definitely me. And I don't know. I don't know what else to do because I'm on my internet. I'm so sorry, guys. Are y'all hearing him at least? Are y'all hearing Texas Dad Lawyer at least? I haven't seen any messages.
We're hearing you just fine. Yeah. I mean, it will go offline maybe for 5 seconds, but it's nothing too crazy.
Okay. So sorry, guys. I'm doing the best I can over here. I'm in the middle of nowhere. So, I don't think you mentioned this, and you may have, but the defense attorney did request that bond be reduced to $150,000.
I didn't. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. So $150,000, and the judge did not agree with that and did the $250,000. I've seen comments going by about the judge being black, the suspect being black. And what did they say? The black judge fits the racial narrative, but like you said, seems like a very fair bond.
I don't think that the Collin County courts did that intentionally whatsoever. So the way that it works is when a case comes in like this, typically through the courts, it's always randomly assigned. There's no, hey, you're going to get this case for this reason. It's randomly assigned, and there should be proof of that. And then once the grand jury convenes, and if they choose to indict Karmelo for this offense, it will actually be sent to a different district court. The magistrate judges and who handles these writ hearings can and will be oftentimes different than the court that the case actually lands in. And so everything for these reasons, because people have concerns about, all sorts of things in the system, and race being one of them, and somehow that impacting the decision making, it's always supposed to be just randomized. And it's literally like next one up goes to the next court. That's just a conveyor belt sort of system as far as assigning courts. Now, if there's a conflict, like if a judge used to be a defense attorney and they'll do a conflict check, make sure that, hey, you didn't represent, this kid before, when you were a juvenile defense attorney or a prosecutor, they'll try to make sure there's no conflicts there for judges, but that's it.
Right. I know a lot of people there's a ton of divide on this case. I feel like, and I'm not an attorney, but all of the cases that I've studied, I feel like this bond is very in line with other cases I've seen that are similar.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
people want no bond, people want $1 million, they want $2 million, but typically in similar cases, it seems like I see 200,000, 250,000, somewhere right around in there.
Right. Yeah. The $250,000 mark does not surprise me. It seems appropriate for the fact pattern and just weighing it against other cases. It seems right. I mean, I think you can go typically anywhere between 150 to 250 on somebody charged with something so serious and no criminal history. And most practitioners are going to say that's going to be the realm that is more reasonable than not. And once you start hitting these huge figures, you're going to raise eyebrows. You're going to have more legal challenges, and we've seen lawsuits against the courts for discriminatory bond practice before, and the courts and the judges are very wary of setting a bond that's unreasonable and too high, and something that somebody just simply is never going to make, because that is going to be looked at as possibly oppressive.
So is it 10% in Texas that they have to pay?
I wish I knew the bond laws. I know in Harris County, there is a rule that it's supposed to be 10% on felonies. Now, these bail bonds companies, I don't know that, like on misdemeanors and things like that, that it's a 10%, but it is standard practice. I mean, I've rarely ever seen a case where somebody didn't have to pay a 10% fee for their surety, right? For the bail bonds company to come in. And that's just money that they're making, but they're taking the risk. For every 10 cases where they make money, if they get one guy that runs, I mean, now they're out of pocket $250K, right? And they're negotiating with the courts. So that 10% figure is very standard, and it's typically what somebody's going to pay.
Okay. A gag order. I saw somebody ask about that, not in those words, but basically that is what they were asking. Do you foresee that happening in this case?
You know, I don't. That's a great question, actually, and congrats to whoever said that. That's maybe the question of the day. It's dependent on each and every judge, right? And so if this case gets indicted, it's going to be set in a district court in Collin County. Whatever that judge's preference is for everything, recording in the courtroom, gag orders, things of that sort, is going to rule. And there's no one way to do this or answer. Some judges feel like I do. They think that gag orders are more, a violation of the First Amendment. You have the right to criticize your government, right? Seek redress, petitions against your government. You have a right to protest. You have the right to free speech. And if you don't like something that the court's doing and you want to address it, as long as it's not tainting that actual jury, which should be sequestered, well, I mean, we're all, as attorneys, we have a professional license. We're all held to professional standards. If you do something unethical in your commentary to the press or community, that can be handled outside of a gag order, outside of court, in my opinion. But some judges, they don't want the possible issues that come with the exposure, with information being leaked, with criticism of their rulings, all those sorts of things. And so for many reasons, they will issue gag orders, and that's their prerogative, right? It's their court, their rules. And so I don't know. I really don't know if there will be a gag order. It's just too much of a discretionary call by any particular judge.
To get off the topic of this specific case, but the Aaron Spencer case out of Arkansas, where he took the life of the daughter's, the man who allegedly offended her and then allegedly kidnapped her, that there was a gag order issued in that case, and they actually just went before the Arkansas Supreme Court to argue that. So
good.
It'll be a few weeks before they have a response, but yeah, they did.
Yeah. It's from my research, which was quite a while ago. I think I looked up the most recent case law back when they were trying to silence Heather Wyatt. But whenever that happened, because I felt so strongly about the complete ban of social media and how that was a violation of her First Amendment rights, There's split circuits on whether gag orders, decisions from different circuits, federal circuits, about whether gag orders are against the First Amendment or not. And so, it's going to be something really dependent on how each state feels about the issue and how much leniency they give to courts to really restrict speech on these topics. So it'll be interesting to see in Aaron Spencer's case, especially because, the defense attorney wants to get out there and rile everybody up because everybody's on the accused side in that case.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
except obviously the government who's prosecuting him.
So wild. But anyway, that's another live for another day. All right. Somebody asked if there was anything that could be done about fake pages. So we do know that the FBI is involved with the fake police chief page, trying to figure out who is behind that page. But as far as other fake pages, I don't know. It's going to be very difficult to get any of these social media platforms to do anything about them. I will tell you that.
Yeah. Social media, it seems, has moved away from keeping people accountable and wanting to free up a market, even if it creates, fake news, right? I think that was the movement after there were certain restrictions put on Trump. And that is now the trend is that anything goes when it comes to social media and posting. And so you're not going to get help probably from the social media companies. What you're going to have to do, if it's illegal, like in the state of Texas, to impersonate somebody online, is you're going to have to file that police report, and they're going to have to get subpoenas and then use those subpoenas to get search warrants and eventually tie somebody down, somebody's IP address, more likely than not, that's not too tech savvy, and end up with their own charge for violating that online impersonation statute in Texas. So that is going to be a very long, drawn out process, but there's really, unless you report it and the social media companies are going to say, okay, since it's fake, we're going to limit it, which I don't see them doing.
Yeah, no.
There's not much you can do.
No. All right, Skippy, it's me. So Carmelo's fundraising platform is not GoFundMe. He did have a GoFundMe. GoFundMe shut that down because they do not allow monies to be raised for legal defense. The platform that they're using now, I think, is called Give, Send, Go, which I've seen other accused individuals switch to that platform. I believe Aaron Spencer is one of those. They had a GoFundMe for him, I believe. It was shut down, and I think they now are on Give, Send, Go, possibly, but another platform. I've seen a few slide by GoFundMe, but not in a case this big. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. So the grand jury, you've talked a little bit about that. What's the average timeline for that to take place?
Well, I'll answer your question, but I just want to say, for the person that says he looks like he AI, I have gotten that multiple times. I don't know what it is about how I look on this screen, but some people think I look like a fake person, an AI person. I'm real.
Really?
I couldn't say impersonation. You didn't hear me? I said impersonation like 3 times right now. That's not AI, or that's the shittiest AI we've ever seen. Anyways, grand jury process. So if somebody is in custody, the state is going to have a need to hurry the process, okay? Ideally, you want to give your law enforcement agencies who are investigating all the time in the world so that they can give you the complete investigation and package sent over to your office without any rushing. But if somebody's in custody, you have a 90-day limit. So you have to have it presented to the grand jury. And if you want an indictment by the 91st day, or they have to be let out of jail. And so when somebody's in custody, there's a rush compared to if somebody's on bond and they're not in custody, there's no answer to how long that grand jury process can take. We could see it take months, if not years. We've seen cases where it's taken months and months and months. John Benet Ramsey was one of those back in the day. And so the answer is not so simple. It is a obviously an offense that doesn't have a statute of limitations. And so grand jury can convene and review this case. Ideally, you're going to probably see it by the end of June, maybe July. Grand jury come with a decision on this, but it's just not a exact answer because Karmelo's out. And so there's no pressure to hit that 90-day mark.
That makes sense. Okay. Next, let's see.
I guess Boricua sent me roses. Thank you, Boricua. I am half Puerto Rican, so I acknowledge Boricua here in the chat, giving me some roses.
All right. Someone asked early on, how can someone who brought a knife to school be considered not dangerous? Meaning, I guess they're meaning and get their bond reduced.
Also, good question. Thank you, Jamie, for the gifts. So now I started a rose storm here. So that's a fair question, right? When you're talking about danger, but you got to understand that the bond conditions or the bond analysis under the code is not something that looks solely at danger or just the offense in and of itself, right? The nature of the offense is one of several factors that the judge is required by law to weigh. And you got to remember also that when coming up with a bond, it is specifically mentioned within the statute that it should not be oppressive. And so I think a lot of folks do look at danger, but also look at what the judge has done to really address the danger issue. Well, he can't leave the house. I mean, if he leaves the house, they revoke his bond, somebody goes and finds him, and he's back in jail for the rest of the trial, right? And so unless there's going to be some family violence, which he doesn't have a history of that we know of occurring in the house, well, I mean, it kind of it's a reasonable condition put in place to satisfy any concern you have with the community's safety. And so you got to look at things, I think, from a wider lens as far as what the judge does and how they're handling those issues. Obviously, bringing a knife to a school campus is a dangerous thing if it's being used for dangerous acts. It also can just be something used to cut your apple at lunch, right? It all depends on how the knife is being used. A knife is a tool. I've often carried knives around all sorts of places, right? And I've never, ever used them to hurt someone, but I've used them to cut string and all sorts of stuff. So, bringing a knife to a school and then using it obviously is part of the fact pattern, and the judge weighed that, and that's why the bond was so high. $250,000 is still a very high bond, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. The February altercation that was mentioned. They asked, is there anything else that's known about that? And I don't believe that there is. I don't know that we'll find out exactly what that was unless somebody leaks information or we hear it from the courts eventually.
I'm wondering what the exact questioning was, right? I would think that one of the reporters in there, if they wanted to make it known, or if it was made known, would have put that in their report for us to consume, because it would have been a great headline if there was something. But the DA's office may have been very strategic and chose not to go into the details of that event in particular, because they want to keep some ammo, right? Some ammo. And really maybe keep the integrity of the investigation also as tight-knit as possible. And so you don't want to perhaps prejudice your jury pool if they were to find these things out. And they may have walked a fine line with that. Maybe the parents just, or whoever was on the stand just answered in a way that wasn't helpful, and the DA chose to not fight them. Maybe they're like, I don't know what happened February 4th. I haven't heard about this. Well, then the prosecutor would just stop the questioning right there, right? They don't have any personal knowledge of those events, can't question them about it. So I don't know the answer because I don't know the line of testimony. We just have seen in reports that it was mentioned that there was a February 4th incident at school.
Yep. All right, it's Two Feathers Native Joe says, now the rumor is it was a tent stake. That's we know that from the police report. It was not a tent stake.
Rumors grow a leg of their own.
So while we are addressing rumors, let's just go ahead and get this one out of the way, that Austin's dad, Jeff, is a registered S offender. And we can find no proof of that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could look up their address if you knew it to see if he was on the national registration. I don't know how you'd exactly find that out. Now, I did look for court records in the two main counties, Collin and Dallas, and didn't see anything that provided proof of that. So I don't know if that's just more fake information going out around, but I mean, I haven't done a deep dive into that, and really it's not relevant. What does that have to do with what happened that day at the track meet? It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just gossip.
Exactly. Yeah, I saw someone say, let's talk about the twins being from a broken home.
Yeah, I don't know enough about their home. I can't judge their home no more than I can judge Karmelo's home. It seems like both kids have families that love them and are trying to do the best they can in the situation. One family is going to have to take care of Hunter and help him through this and make sure he gets the counseling and psychological services that he needs to get through a very tragic thing. And when we know twins are bonded, everybody has read about this before. Twins have a special bond. And I have no doubt that for Hunter, a part of him died that day with his brother, right? He'll never be the same human being that he was. And that's going to take a lot of addressing. And then Karmelo, same sort of thing. A part of who he was and his innocence died that day that he chose to engage in those acts, and he will never be looked at the same, no matter how this comes out. Yeah. He's going to live a very difficult life moving forward, and so I don't judge these families without knowing more. I see people talk trash about Karmelo's family. I don't know anything that's worth commenting on about his family, no more than I know anything about Austin's family, and I think both are dealing with it in real time the best that anybody could, right? It's horrific.
Anna Etheridge says, why we debunking misinformation, do the same for the person charged with the crime. Anna, I have done a ton of that over on Facebook. I've posted factual information for both Austin and Karmelo. I get attacked regardless of what I post, but I have done all of that with the factual information that we have. A lot of the information we just don't have, and I'm not going to speculate on what's what. I just haven't actually even brought up any accusations against Austin. I only mentioned that about the dad because I've seen it, mentioned multiple times in the chat, and I just wanted to clear that up. Okay, next. All right, somebody asked about the varying accounts of the witnesses, and yes, were there only 2 witness statements, 2 or 3 that were in the police report? 2, I think, for sure.
I know 2 for sure. I haven't read it for a week, so I'd have to look at it again.
And there were a couple of variations from those, but now the list of witnesses is like 30 plus long. But we only saw a little bit of detail from, I think, 2 different ones, and they did vary slightly. They did. Right.
That's normal. That's not something that is out of the ordinary. I think I gave this example during our last live. If I have a jury and say I was the state trying to prove something, which I'm not, I'm a defense attorney now. But when I was, say the element that I had to prove was the color of the tie that I'm wearing, or was the tie, the fact that somebody was wearing a tie. And so I would show an image of somebody wearing a red tie and then let them look at it for 10 seconds. And they would be in that image with multiple people, because that's what we're perceiving. We're perceiving all the time multiple things happening around us. And so I would switch that image off. I would have a multiple choice question. Raise your hand if you think that the tie that the gentleman was wearing was blue, purple, green, red, other. and you would get people that would raise their hand for everything. And then I would ask them, does anybody think that he wasn't wearing a tie? And nobody would raise their hand. Well, if I have to prove that somebody's wearing a tie, but three people, so one person says it was a red tie, one person says it was a brown tie, one person says that it was a green tie, does that mean that, did I still meet my burden of proving that that person had a tie on and everybody could agree? We're used to seeing this. If you are in the criminal justice realm, you are used to seeing statements vary in minute ways. In fact, if everybody tells the same story, you should be suspicious. That would probably be something that was planned, gamed. That's something that would raise my suspicions greatly if everybody was telling the same narrative. It's just part of the way that we function with our memories, especially when we see something traumatic. We're all going to perceive it and remember it a little bit different, but nothing changes. At the end of the day, they all saw one human being stab another. That's the element that has to be approved, right? And so everything is important. Context is important, but at the end of the day, nothing that they said about the force that was used before that stabbing shows that the stabbing was warranted under law. That's my position based on what we know, is none of these Class C versions of touching would allow the escalation of force into deadly conduct, deadly weapon, right? Deadly force is what we call it under law.
Right. Okay. I thought there was something I saw, but I can't remember what it was. Oh, I was just going to make a statement about what witnesses and witness statements and the recollection of things. I mean, research has proven that they're not super reliable. So, I don't know. I always have a little bit of a question when it comes to eyewitness statements, because like you said, there are probably going to be portions that are true, but portions that are not true, not because they're trying to lie, but just because, they're just not remembering.
No, actually, probably 2 years from now, remember it differently than they remembered it that day. That's why it's important to capture it that day, because they will see media, they will experience different things, they'll watch movies, and your mind just meshes things. And sometimes, it's hard with time. Time is really something that can kind of twist our memories. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's all sorts of discrepancies that come out between 75 people that were interviewed.
Right. Okay. All right. Do you think the trial will be publicized?
Will it be recorded, publicized? Maybe is the question.
Like live on TV or on YouTube or whatever.
It's I can only hope so, but this is again going to be at the judge's discretion. I think that the court is going to be very concerned with security, given how much publicity has already gone into this and how much, fake information was put out there to really get people, I don't know how else to state it, excited, get people incited, maybe is a better word, about the situation. And I think the court's going to take that into perspective when making that decision. And it actually may help to allow recording so that people are able to sit at their workplace and sit at home and see the transparency and see the fairness in the process and understand the facts, instead of having to consume it through media, which they don't necessarily always find trustworthy. And so, there's going to be, I think, sectors of the population on both sides, folks that are rooting for one side over the other, that a recording and showing everything in transparency will help, I would think, help just people understand what the facts really were. And maybe in that there would be a little bit more peace than, I hope, unrest. We don't want to see unrest with a verdict on either side of any case ever.
Okay, I'm seeing a lot of comments right now about whether or not the stadium was school property.
Who else's property would it be?
It is listed as a district venue under the Frisco ISD website. It is listed as a Frisco ISD venue. So it is school property, 100% it is school property. Yes, and the police report says it. So yes, it is 100% school property. Now, the size of the blade of the knife will determine whether or not it was prohibited because the school rules didn't allow it, or whether it was illegal because Texas state law didn't allow it. So 5.5-inch blade or longer, Texas state law, that's illegal. But shorter than 5.5-inch blade, not illegal, but against school rules.
Correct.
I feel like I'm explaining that every day.
You got it down. Yeah, I see the. I stopped responding to the comment. I understand people don't understand it, but it is a goofy thing in Texas that a kid can bring a knife with a blade under 5.5 inches to school, and it is not illegal. Mm-hmm. Not going to be allowed by the rules, but not illegal.
Right. We don't know the size, y'all. We do not know the size. That has not been released. Probably won't know that for a while. Okay. All right. This is my own question. I noticed that they talked about, the defense attorney pointed out the fact, or his parents maybe pointed out the fact that he was the captain of the football team, the track team, but nothing was said about his grades. Do you think that, would that be something that they would have brought up if he was like an honor student, or no? Does that not have any bearing on?
No, I think that, I want to say that I read that he maybe couches he was a good student instead of the exact grades. And I want to say that I read that, but I've read so many articles.
Yeah.
I could be meshing facts together, but I wouldn't be surprised if without a school transcript right in front of him, or, even these things fluctuate over the course of 6 weeks. He didn't cite anything particular with grades, and if anything, maybe left it alone, or maybe just couched it he was a good student. Now, good student could be grade wise or behavior wise. It can be argued both ways, and that can, when you talk about the word good in a court at law, we can get very feisty as attorneys talking about what's good, right? What's good and evil has been argued since the beginning of time. It depends on the human being and determining very subjective. But I think, I think that he had other points of emphasis, right? He had other points of emphasis to make, and the fact that he was able to lean into the fact that he worked jobs while being a student, while being a leader on the teams, is more than enough to show that this is outside of his character, right?
Well, and someone else just said, and you're exactly right, whoever said you can't be the captain of any, you can't even be an athlete on a team unless your grades are good enough, and that's true. And it's totally irrelevant, guys. The only reason I brought it up is because everybody's been talking about it on both sides. So it is totally irrelevant to what we're discussing. I was just curious. And they may have said it. I see several of you guys said that the parents did say it in court. The articles I read did not mention that. So like Mike said, it's there's a ton of information. And depending on what you read, it may be in that article. It may not be in that article.
Right.
Austin's GPA, and again, y'all, we only know this really because the boys each had their GPAs posted on their X accounts, and so Karmelo had his GPA posted, that was a 3.7, and Austin had his posted as a 4.0. So essentially the same GPA.
And it doesn't surprise me that they have that on their X accounts, because my understanding is a lot of young men these days, especially in the era of nil, are using social media as a way to be, I'm trying to think of the word. See, this is how you know I'm not AI. Scouted, right?
Yeah,
it's a way to be scouted as a student athlete. And so, hey, I'm going to get more opportunity if I'm both a good student, maybe get some academic scholarships even mixed in with my athletic scholarship, and save the school money and get an opportunity to go play at the next level. It's definitely something now that's more of a focus than ever before. These kids can make money in college. When I played college football, if you took a dime, you might get suspended, right? You might get suspended from playing. You might cost everybody their bowl rings. You couldn't take anything without a potential consequence. Now they get paid tens of thousands of dollars. It's wild.
Yeah, if not millions, yeah.
Millions, some of them millions.
Some of them are. Okay. All right. Toxicology. I've seen this question come up a lot, guys. Toxicology takes weeks, if not months. if, this is hypothetical, so y'all do not come at me in the chat. If there is anything positive on Austin's toxicology, could that come into play at trial?
I don't see that ever coming into play because it's, as the attorney, you're going to eliminate it out. I mean,
Okay.
It would be one thing if.
Can you explain what that word means that you just said?
Sorry. Yeah. So once we're in trial, we're going to be bound by the rules of evidence, right? And so we're going to talk about all sorts of things. We're going to argue about all sorts of things, but we shouldn't be bringing things in that would be unfair. I'll just use some layman terms like unfair character evidence. Now, if somebody was to say that you were able to tie, like a fact-wise, that the drug use was somehow making somebody act very aggressive, but we're talking about extremely aggressive. Like we've seen certain drugs that people take them and they get superhuman strength, and they're like, I seen one article, one guy was like impaled and he was still walking around. I mean, they're just in a different world, and that could be something that you could tie the drug use to relevance, right? But in this scenario, again, we have fact-wise what we know, just a touch, some sort of touch, a grab, a push, but it's a touch, then escalating to literally inserting an object into a human being in a way and manner that it killed them quickly. That is not going to be proportional. That is not going to be force meets force. That's going to be considered excessive. There's no way around that argument. And I think people have tried to create a fake narrative to get around that argument, knowing damn well that the facts as they exist, you lose, right? You lose based on what we know. And so maybe we'll hear some of these other facts that have been thrown out there come into evidence down the road. But as we know now, based on the arrest report, there's nothing that shows that escalation of use of deadly force was in fact warranted. And so I hope that all makes sense.
Okay, guys, I see y'all asking who he is. He is not an attorney in this case at all. You want to tell? I won't speak for you.
Oh, I'm just true crime mama's friend. No, I'm a Texas lawyer. I've been a prosecutor. I was a juvenile prosecutor for about 5-6 years. My name is Mike Hanson. I've been involved with just a lot of volunteer work with the state of Texas, but I currently practice criminal defense. I advocate for victims as well. I do personal injury. We do wrongful death. And of course, I do juvenile defense, which is my favorite work, as well as working with veterans. And so if you're wondering, where my passion lies and why I'm on lives involved with cases involving 17-year-olds, because it's exactly what I feel most passionate about. And that's why on both sides, I can see that tension and that pull, because as I've stated before, having been both a juvenile prosecutor and juvenile defense attorney, young men do dumb things. Their frontal lobes are not fully developed till they're at least 25. That's what science is telling us. They're impulsive. They are driven by pride, especially when you're a leader. You're both leaders in this scenario. You're both people who are highly competitive. And I can see both sides of this case in a way that I think is fairly unique, just because I have extensive practice in juvenile law as well as in criminal law.
I saw somebody said you're a TikTok lawyer. No, he's not. He's actually really a real life attorney.
I'm okay with TikTok lawyer. So we used to call Jefferson Fisher the TikTok lawyer. He was a part of my group. It's a group called the Texas Young Lawyers Association. And before he got 12 million followers, and he has a book that's like endorsed by Oprah Winfrey. If you don't know Jefferson Fisher, he's like the most famous TikTok lawyer ever. And we used to, and I never really liked that people did it, but when he got to like 1 million followers, I was like, oh, I would take it a compliment if somebody calls you the TikTok lawyer, because I guarantee you every time he posts, he's probably making $10,000+ and obviously has a book deal that's going to be one of the best sellers that came all from TikTok. It actually all came from TikTok. And then he got a LinkedIn series. They flew him out to California. And so I think, hey, when you believe in yourself and you're willing to get on here after hours and do stuff like this, people can make fun of you all you want, but you'll be the one laughing because God sees your heart. God knows what you want. And if you just keep your head up and keep grinding, good things will happen. And I see it with you, True Crime Mama. Look how many followers you have. You started from zero, 3 years ago, and now you have hundreds.
No, I haven't even had my 2-year. No,
not even 2-year mark. And you got invited to Hulu. Didn't you do something with Good Morning America and Hulu? Mm-hmm. So the proof's in the pudding. If you keep working hard, good things come to you. And people love authenticity. That's the one thing. I may not be the smartest lawyer. I believe in talking low and slow and not too much in the courtroom. I'm not going to be flashy by any means, but people want somebody to believe. And if you can make them believe your story, your side of events, whether it's mitigation wise for your client or whether it's guilt innocence, you can do your clients a lot of favors. So I think that I'm paired up with, I think, one of the best creators possible.
I'm just over here faking it till I make it, y'all. That's all I'm doing. Don't let
well, look, you got the neon sign behind you. That is incredible faking it, if it can be called that.
Because here's the thing. Hang on, I got to do my little puzzle slider. Well, I got that because, if TikTok goes away and I'm forced to switch to long form content over on YT, then I got to have a little more professional setup. So that's why I have it. All right, hang on. All right, so toxicology won't be back for weeks to months. Just depends. Who knows when it'll be, but weeks to months for sure. And looks like that won't matter. All right. Somebody asked something about a video. Yes, according to everything I've read, there is at least one video. We don't know what exactly that video is of. If it's of the entire thing, portions of it, we don't know. And probably we won't know until trial.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those very interesting pieces of evidence, because whether it's surveillance footage or videos, if it was raining, like many have said it was, and we know after the event, they said the officers describe it as a downpour, right?
Oh, yeah. Have you seen the sky?
The sky?
The pictures of the sky,
it was dark. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so no matter what the video footage is, when it's raining like that, and if it's hitting the camera and it's shaky and there's people talking, it's just usually not the greatest quality. I do hope that the events were caught on some kid's camera. I'm going to think it was a kid. They just record everything when confrontation starts. I hope that it is there, because I think that's going to provide a really good gauge for how this case should go. And I can't imagine it not existing, quite honestly, having done a lot of juvenile work. Right.
Okay, y'all, dopamine blush. She's asking a good question. Y'all are being ugly to her. I'm telling her, go look it up. That's the reason we have him here, so he can answer our questions. Y'all be nice. All right, so dopamine blush says, can you explain the 4602, 4603 again?
Is that prohibited weapons statute is what you're asking about, and unlawful carrying of weapons? So I don't have my code book right in front of me, and I think that's the applicable section you're talking about.
Yes, she said
the yes. The prohibited weapon statute is going to define what is a prohibited weapon, right? And it's specifically going to tell you, I think it's subsection 6 under the statute, what a location restricted knife is defined as. And the knives that you're not allowed to bring onto a school campus or school bus or UIL event, anything associated with schools pretty much, is specifically a location restricted knife. And so that explains the prohibited weapon statute as it applies to this fact pattern. UCW is just your general unlawful carrying of weapons statute in Texas, and that more so has to do with firearms. But obviously there's lots of other weapons you can't carry around in Texas, but if those are the two statutes they're asking about, I hope that clears anything up about them. I think a lot of people just read that you're not supposed to have a location restricted knife and don't go to the definition of it. So they just read, oh, you can't have a knife there. And they don't realize that that knife is a very specific definition under the law. And that's why juveniles or people can have knives legally on campus, even though it violates the school campus policy.
What the definition of a location restricted knife is? I've already said it once. I'm going to let you say it this time.
Oh, a blade under 5.5 inches. Yeah.
Over.
I'm sorry. A blade over 5.5 inches is a location restricted knife.
Right,
You can
yeah.
have one, the blade under that.
Under. That's right. Yes. Okay. Hopefully that answers that question. Okay. Somebody asked, do you think he will take a plea?
Well, I mean,
Is that always offered or no?
it's not always offered. So it's up to the state. The state doesn't have to offer it. The state actually has a right to a jury trial, just like the defendant does in the state of Texas. Now, except for juvenile cases. Now, this is not a juvenile case, even though, excuse me, these are juveniles. This is an adult case because at 17 in the state of Texas, you're an adult. But if this was a juvenile case, that is one area of law where the juvenile has a right to a jury trial, but the state actually does not. And so, there may be an exception. It may be the determinant. I'm getting into the weeds here. Determinant petition statute. I'd have to look into that. But in adult cases, the state has a right to a jury trial. They can no offer somebody. They can say, yeah, we're not going to give you an offer. We're going to take it to trial. And so that would be unusual. I can't really answer the question whether he would take a plea deal because it all depends what it is. I mean, there's plenty of plea deals that somebody could take. You could offer them a Class A misdemeanor, time served for the time that he spent in jail. Assault causes bodily injury. And I guarantee you, defense attorney's going to convince him to take that, no matter what his claim is, right? Move on with your life. You got a misdemeanor conviction instead of going to jail possibly for 99 years. But the state could offer him a lesser, right? Manslaughter. And they could say, we'd like to have an open hearing to either the judge or jury about punishment. And they could say, we're still going to ask for 25 years, and defense is going to argue for probation. I mean, there's so many options when it comes to plea offers, and some that the accused would likely take, right? And some, obviously, others where you would never take him, right? And so that's an impossible question to answer just because there's an infinite amount of offers that can really come out of any given fact pattern.
Right. Okay. One more time. He is charged and will be tried as an adult.
So I do see a really good question. I've seen it asked a few times. Do you think there'll be a change of venue?
Okay.
So the DA actually already answered this in an interview and made it clear that he wants to have it in Collin County. So this affects Collin County citizens. This is a Collin County case. I want to have it in Collin County. It's not up to him though, right? It's up to a judge. And so do I think that may be argued? Possibly. But again, Karmelo has a good base across the state and in Collin County itself. And so maybe they don't want to move it because what are the dangers of moving it? You could get a much more conservative judge in a conservative county. I think Collin County is known to be pretty conservative though. But I don't know. You could end up, in Tarrant County. They don't play with crime out there. They send people away for long periods of time. Then on the flip side, you could end up in Dallas County. Might be a more favorable, actually, no doubt that would probably be a favorable venue. But, at the end of the day, I think there's still, no matter where the venue's at, I think there's still, sorry, I got one of these things that I have to clear to be able to keep talking to y'all.
Hey, Mark, Mark Breedlove, if you're in here, I think you're going to have to go live and then ask to join. Because if I accept your request, it's going to kick Texas Dad Lawyer off. And I'm not sure. I haven't. I only ever go live with you. You're the only other person I ever really go live with. Try that and see. I just saw your request, but when I went to accept you, it said it was going to kick Texas Dad Lawyer off. Maybe that'll work. I don't know. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Did you finish?
Yeah, no, you just never know what's going to happen with that change of venue. Plus, it's a huge inconvenience. I mean, you're having to now, everybody in the trial's located in one jurisdiction. Imagine if you get sent down to Harris, you're living out of hotels, you're busting everybody down there. I mean, the fees and the expenses with the change of venue are also consideration by the court. And so there's lots of things to factor in with that decision. I think they would be fine in Collin County. I think they're going to get a fair trial, but you just don't know. It's up to the defense and the judge.
All right, Emily, I saw that Facebook question. I'm not asking that because we don't know what the situation was in February. We don't know what that was. Well, we don't know what that was. I'm not going to ask that question. I know that's not your question. Sassy Pants, I did not see your question. If you will ask it again, I will look for. Oh, wait. There's Mark. I think. Oh, hang on. Okay. I sent you an invite, Mark. I appreciate you, Emily, but I'm not going to ask that question because we don't know what the situation was in February. And I'm really trying to avoid rumor and speculation. Hello, Mark.
Mark's a little frozen.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good to go.
He's frozen.
I'm listening the whole time. You guys are. Uh-oh. Let me move my camera.
I think you're freezing.
Is that
up
better?
A little bit. Yeah, that's better. Maybe.
Let me unfreeze.
I think you're good now.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah, that's
back
better.
my phone up a little bit.
Yes.
There we go. All right. So I've been listening to you guys. You guys got it going on.
Mark's my brother's name, by the way.
Okay. I
You said it's
apologize for
I said Mark's my brother's name, by the way.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Good name.
I apologize for not seeing your request earlier. That little bitty request box down there, I don't pay any attention to it. I happened to see it, and anyway. Okay, I'm going to continue on with the question. Sassy Pants, I still didn't see your question. I'll try to look for it if you'll send it again. Okay.
Maybe Fred or maybe Mark can introduce himself so everybody that's been on knows.
All right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. You know, we're in different time zones. So I'm in South Georgia, not quite in Texas, but my name's Mark. I'm a teacher right now, 24-year military vet, TikToker. I met True Crime Mama on here just shooting the crap, and somehow a lot of my kids are now coming to Mississippi colleges. I have a daughter at Mississippi State and a son in Jackson, Mississippi. So we got cool on here, and I've been watching her ever since. And keep up the good work, True Crime Mama. You put out a lot of good content.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay, this is a question somebody was asking, and I've seen this going back to 4602 and 4603 with the location restricted knife. People have said that only applies to adults. Does it only apply to adults?
I would have to look at the code, but I honestly have to look at the code, but they're both adults. So
Right.
you got to remember in Texas, 17's the age of criminal responsibility. So you don't have any concern about that statute in particular, applying to an adult or applying in this scenario if the blade was over 5.5 inches.
Okay. Hopefully you guys are understanding that. Everybody's giving you shout outs, Mark, because other teachers in the chat.
Yeah, I've been a teacher for 3 years now. I got a question for you guys in the chat and for you guys. I don't know how old you guys are. I might be a little older than you, but you remember the OJ trial?
Oh, yeah.
You remember the OJ trial, True Mama?
I do. I remember it, but I mean, I think I was pretty
I was a
young.
kid.
And
Yeah, I was a kid also. You remember the tension kind of going between everybody was just, whether you're black or whether you're white, who you agree with. I'm kind of getting those vibes, and I just want the facts to come out. That's what I think this is about, not who you are or what you are, but we'll see. But this reminds me of OJ back in way long time ago.
yeah.
You know what? And I think Mark will get this being a vet. I think one of the dangers that we have nowadays is that we have people who can be enemies of the U.S. that will flame that fire. They know the algorithm or the fake, you can have people creating fake profiles to say the nastiest things to try to just really get people divided on whether it's politics or whether it's race, whatever people can be divided about. And those people that are enemies of the U.S. out in China or Russia or wherever they want to see us fail, they're just laughing. They're happy to do that. I think that's why the FBI is part of investigating this misinformation stuff.
I saw that with that initial post about the weapons, saying that I'm going to a track meet to shoot people and all that kind of stuff. That post was just going wild, and people even shared it on my page when I put my opinion out, and I would just respond, this is fake. And it's very simple. I just went to Austin's profile and I tried to go to Karmelo's profile, and it was him playing football. That's all it was on his page. And there's no way he could have created a profile of himself playing football after the incident. And so it's so easy to find the information, but people want to manipulate it and they want to believe what they want to believe. So that's kind of hard to get around when people just aren't open to taking a look at both sides.
Mark, people are wanting to know what your opinion is.
My opinion, okay, so I made a video on my page, Meet the Breedloves, and my opinion kind of goes exactly with what the lawyer said here. I think being young men and boys in the middle of a situation where other people were around, I think ego and testosterone took over. And being a teacher, I can see this, and both of them being great athletes and just not wanting to look like a punk, so to speak. I think it went too far as far as what happened in the end. But overall, I think both had some responsibility, but I do not believe it should have ended in someone's funeral. So that's what I think right now.
I think I love Mark's perspective too, because as a teacher, he's probably dealing with some sort of crap, I'll call it that, between students on a weekly, if not daily basis.
Every day. Every day, yeah.
And that slope is slippery when we're talking about juveniles and what we make it appear that we allow, because I know that there's somebody slapping somebody or somebody grabbing somebody, doing something that's not right every day in every high school across our nation.
And I see it with boys more so than girls, especially with the physical side. At 8 a.m. in the morning, they're coming in, they're slapping, grabbing, playing, and it can turn from playing to an all-out brawl within seconds. I actually teach a JROTC class, and my first period, guys, listen to this, I have 65 students in my class. That's how popular the class became. It was 76. I have 65 kids in my first class, but I do have a field outside. I have a pond out back. I have a football field this way, so we can go outside and let some of that energy off. But with boys, it can become very volatile very fast. So I'm not going to say Austin or Karmelo were bad kids, because I just don't believe that. If you are the captain of the football team, there's a level of respect that you have gotten from the coaches, the players, the fans, the student population, because I know all the captains I've been around, they're typically good students. So I'm not going to label either one of them as bad students, but in the sight of other people, especially girls, whatever happened, I think both of them didn't want to look like I was going to be the one that got punked out, so to speak. Yeah, and it went too far.
I'm sorry. You're helping me reach my goal, and it gets late.
Awesome.
Okay, all right. I saw a question pop up that said, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it asked about the weapon being concealed. I guess will that play a role? Will that be more harmful since the knife was concealed?
To me, it doesn't. I guess it depends on exactly how we're stating that fact, right? If you're saying like I armed myself and then made a comment to somebody to like try to provoke something, knowing I had the weapon in my palm ready to go, that sort of concealment could be a very relevant fact for the jury to weigh, because it's like anything, right? It doesn't matter what that is that's concealed. You know, and you're the only one that knows, hey, I got a little secret weapon here. So if you lure somebody into the conflict, that's going to be a fact that's weighed and argued. But just the fact that it was in a backpack concealed, where else would you expect it? I don't think that really is a big deal. So it really going to depend on exactly what the real facts are and how it was utilized before it was physically utilized, right? As far as concealment's concerned.
We cannot tell the story again, sorry, but this will be on my YouTube after probably tomorrow. So if you want to watch the whole thing again, you can go to my YouTube link in my profile on TikTok and you can watch it there tomorrow. Are we all making excuses for this? No one's making excuses. We're just talking about the facts and the variables, and there are a lot, especially when we don't even know all the facts yet. We can sit here and talk about could have, should have, would have all day long, but what's done is done at this point.
I see that often on my page. I'll make a comment on something because I don't mind going back and forth. I mean, I did 24 years in the Army. I've seen it all. You make a comment on one side one day, and you make a comment about something else that happened, and people will literally go, well, I thought you wanted him to be guilty. I thought you thought he was guilty. I never said I thought he was guilty. And then today I posted he got bond on my Facebook page, Mark Breedlove. And they were like, but I thought you didn't want him to get bond. I never said that. I just posted the facts.
Exactly.
And I do follow you on Facebook also, and I follow you also, Texas lawyer. But just posting the facts, people will get emotional and they will go off and claim that they know how you feel about the situation. It can be daunting on creators because we're like, where are people getting this, And,
right, exactly. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I did when I shared about Austin's funeral, I just said, please be respectful in the comments. That's all I asked. And then I said I was going to block anybody that wasn't. Well, then it got to 8,000 comments, and people were pissed because I wasn't able to go through 8,000 comments and keep blocking people. So I finally just had to turn the comments off. Like only one person, guys. I'm only one person.
I just start ignoring it. I'm like, at some point you can't keep up with all the comments, and I hate when I see something that's just really distasteful, but there's not enough hours in the day, and I'm not even close to as big as True Crime Mom with all this stuff. So,
I mean, my Facebook has really blown up over the past month. It's insane.
Yes, man. Yeah, it really has. I'm proud of you. I know what you went through. We talked about the situation that happened with the scammers and stuff on Facebook.
Well, because I was texting with you the day it happened.
The day it happened, yeah, that was unreal. I'm glad you got it back, and I just crossed 104,000 on IG, and
wow,
awesome.
I can't keep up with the comments, guys, and everything we post isn't our necessary feelings, but we have to post content because these apps require us to do that. And sometimes you're not going to agree with it. Sometimes I don't even agree with it, but I want to see what everybody else thinks, so I'm going to post it anyway. And if it's not something people like, it is what it is.
Absolutely, that's so true. Yeah, I've said a million times, just because I'm sharing it doesn't mean that I agree with it.
Yeah.
Y'all chill out.
Yeah, being a content creator can be daunting, but we have jobs also. At least I know I do. I'm sure you do also, I know. Yeah. This is not a full-time event that we do. We go to jobs every day and have businesses and families and kids, so we're just trying to have some fun and listen to some things and post content because we enjoy it. At least I do. I know you guys do also. But I got a question for you, if you don't mind, Texas lawyer. Are you in the Frisco area, or are you close to the area, or what?
No,
You
I
plan on-
practiced. Yeah, I practiced down here in Harris County, in the Fort Bend County area, but my firm is based out of DFW. So they have, and I say my firm, the firm that I work, for and with, just, we all say my firm, right? But I lead the Houston area office, our satellite office down here. But my firm, the founding office is in Fort Worth, and we have a Dallas office and a Southlake office. So we get a lot of Collin County cases. And I started my career in Fort Worth, so I'm very familiar with everything North Texas because I was a prosecutor up there for several years.
Okay. Do you plan on attending the trial, or are you kind of going to let it play out, or what?
I would like to, I'm always looking at how these things line up. I would love to get in there to be able to provide firsthand commentary, after the event of what I heard, what I saw, especially if there's no cameras. But it's always one of those things, will the stars align with the schedule, with the clients down here? Can I get away? Because I know my firm will support me doing that. They love me creating stuff. They say, Mike, go, we trust you, go do your thing. And so they would be more than happy for me to provide what they would hope is balanced content on what I'm seeing happening in court to the public. But I don't know. I just got to see if I have my own stuff going on.
There you go. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, Mike, I've seen comments about your eyes. You need to blink more, your lips, and then now somebody wants to know if you have white gold teeth.
I have braces, and one of the reasons why I have braces is I was deployed in 2022, and I was supposed to bring a retainer with me. And that retainer got lost at some point during my deployment, and so my teeth all moved. And I waited until recently to get that fixed. So now they got too crooked, and now I won't age myself too much, but in my 30s, I'm having to fix my teeth, and that's why you see the white braces or the silver braces on my teeth.
Yes.
It's funny you say that, because when I first got the basic training, I had a retainer. And the second day in the chow hall, when they made us get out of there, I had it sitting on my tray. And sure enough, I took it and threw it in the trash.
Yep. And whenever you're mobilized, they won't provide dental care for you. That is a luxury.
No orthodontic services. Yeah.
Unless it's something that's going to kill you, you're not going to get any medical service out there. So
no orthodontic services. It's hard to get that. Very hard to get that. Yeah. So
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up quickly because I know we've been going on for a while. But somebody did have a question about an unbiased jury and how they find an unbiased jury.
The thing that I think we forget is there's a whole bunch of the world that doesn't even know what TikTok is. There's a whole bunch of people that work their tails off every single day, and the only thing they have time to do is get home and maybe watch a little TV if they're lucky, but maybe just put their kids to bed after working 16, 17 hours a day. And so there are plenty people in our population who are going to hear about this for the first time when they're sitting in a jury selection, and they will answer all the questions that the attorneys have, and they will be people that can sit and truly just listen to the facts. And they're not going to have had the exposure. We're so caught up in our bubbles. We think that everybody is like us, and there are many people that don't live the existence we live. And so I've seen it. I had a juvenile murder trial. I think True Crime Mama knows about this case, but we brought in a panel of 300 people, and we got 12 exactly. We didn't get any alternate jurors. It was literally number 100 was probably, I think, our 12th juror. And it can be hard, but you bring a lot of people in there. You bring questionnaires prepared. People answer those. You get to review them ahead of time. It saves you a lot of time. And then you start asking questions, and you can typically find, if you bring on big cases, 300 to 500 people in, 12 people who know nothing about the case and answer all the questions in a way that can really sit and just look at the facts. So I do think it's completely possible.
I had some on that also. Earlier, when you guys spoke about the judge being black, some people, even though the judge doesn't make the final decision, some people, I think, took that as this is going to be more favorable towards him. But I don't think it's going to be more favorable. I think it's actually going to make it more even keel, because I think she's going to have a rumbling pressure, so to speak, to make sure that she doesn't overcompensate for him being black and her being black. So I would not want to be in her shoes right now, with the bond hearing, with her family. I'm sure she's getting, even if she goes out to eat, people are, oh, that's the judge. Oh, she's going to be, do you think he's getting, it's going to be a lot on her, I believe, to make sure that she's not showing bias. Even though she doesn't make the final decision, I'm sure a jury will, but that's going to be a lot on her, I believe, also.
Yeah, and I think, Mark, I don't know that she actually ends up being the judge assigned to the case if it's indicted. I think she's assigned to it preliminary for bond hearing matters, but I think that it will go through another random decision, like just through whoever's turn it is next, if it's indicted. You just indictment by indictment, it just goes district court to district court to district court. So I don't know that she'll end up being the judge over the trial, but I absolutely agree with you. Quite frankly, I know people are like, some people are upset that it was reduced, and I'm still, as a criminal defense attorney, saying that is still really high for somebody with no history. If you work in the system and you kind of do the comparison analysis, $250K is still really high. A lot of families can't afford to pay a bond company $25,000 minimum to get a loved one out of jail.
I did read on one article where the father said, I'm, even though we're married, I'm the only provider in the house. So I guess maybe he was saying he's the only one working. And when it was at $1 million, he pretty much told the judge, or his attorney told the judge that, hey, he said, I can't afford it. So this narrative that he has a lot of money already, and I think people believe that they already have the money raised from the not GoFundMe, the new way they did it. I think people believe they already have that money in their hands, and I don't know if that's true or not.
Right, no.
Okay, yeah. People think they're getting rich off that money, but I don't think so, no.
All right, I think it was Lori that asked about the grand jury, and Lori, he said probably June or July. If I have your name wrong, I'm sorry. I can't find your comment. I did see your question, though. Yes, Brandy, money has been raised for Austin's family, too. Both have had multiple fundraisers going.
Yep. Hundreds of thousands. So, yeah, they both are doing well in that case. I mean, it's just unfortunate, Like I said, boys are going to be boys. I had dogs at one point. I had 2 pit bull boys and a couple of girls. And the boys is something about that aggression and them just going off at a snap. And I'm not saying the boys are dogs, but I'm saying that aggression and that ability to not calm down when a situation happens. I just see it in school. I've seen it with male dogs. I've seen it with males my whole life. In the military, I've seen it in bars. Something about that final look of not wanting to be the one that looks like I'm gonna back down can end up in tragedy for men quite often. So shout out to both families. Hopefully both families have got some kind of solace and praying right now and some kind of relief, because this is ugly no matter how you turn it for everyone involved.
Yeah.
All right, I just want to make a comment. I saw someone say that Austin's family has 3 GoFundMes, and that's just greed. So, like I said, both boys, Austin and Karmelo, have multiple. I've seen multiple fundraisers for both. Austin's family, I think, started one. I know a restaurant started another one. Now, I haven't really seen more than 2. Not saying there's not more than 2 for him, just saying. I know that a restaurant started a second one. And y'all have to remember that it's not really up to them who starts these things. A lot of times people create fake ones to try to get funds themselves. So keep that in mind. Also, I feel like money should be like speech. We expect to be able to have free speech. We should be able to do what we want to do with our money. And if people want to support Austin, fine, that's their business. If people want to support Karmelo, fine, that's their business. That's my opinion that nobody asked for, but got it.
Yeah, I think it's something that's been more unfairly criticized. You can have an opinion about it, but we didn't hear the same conversation from the public about Luigi Mangione, who is now going close to $1 million. And, you know, I think that's something that a lot of big cases have drawn attention and strong feelings. And a lot of these people have raised a lot of money for their legal fees and expenses. And at the end of the day, all of them end up with some sort of negative stigma associated with them their whole life because of the media attention. So is that little bit of money for legal fees worth it? It's not worth the media attention in my book.
There's no playbook for a tragedy like this, or any tragedy, you know. Every family's going to have a different outcome, a different thought, different way they handle it. So, you know, you just do the best you can, I guess, when it happens and go on. But who are we anyone to say what you should do when your son gets caught up in a situation such as this, both of them? So who knows?
Yeah.
It's a terrible situation all the way around.
That's good.
Okay, I think we can wrap this up for tonight, unless y'all have anything else y'all want to add. I don't want to cut you guys off.
No, thanks for inviting me on earlier. Good to see you. We'll be talking soon. I got what you need. We'll be talking. And nice to meet you also, sir. I'll be following you right away. All right.
I think I followed you while you were on here. It's good to meet you as well, Mark. Y'all have a great night.
I'm going to figure it out. There you go.
With all three of us again. I think it's a good conversation.
Sounds good. Y'all have a great night.
All right. Thank you guys. All of you who watched and liked and shared. Thank you all. Good night.